A Minnesota that uses our resources wisely and responsibly, where we respect the resources of the Iron Range and the jobs those resources provide. A Minnesota where we are free to worship, where we choose, in the manner we choose, without interference from politicians like Tim Walz. A Minnesota that gives all parents fair choices for their children's education, especially if the children are in failing schools. A Minnesota where we teach our children to look honestly at our history, and in that honest evaluation of our triumphs and our flaws, we learn from our mistakes and take pride in the fact that we are citizens of the greatest country in the world. And may God continue to guide us in this journey. A Minnesota that protects all human life. A Minnesota where the protection doesn't end at birth, it continues with a reliable patient-centered health care, a strong education system, a vibrant economy, and the dignity we deserve at all stages of our lives. That's being pro-life. A Minnesota that empowers all of our citizens to participate in the electoral process. We all want a fair vote. A Minnesota where there is collaboration, balance, and respect among our elected officials, where those officials are working for the good of all of us. A Minnesota that encourages reliable, clean, and affordable energy, using science to determine sensible, fiscally responsible energy policies. A Minnesota where the Second Amendment is respected and defended, where we know our fundamental right to protect ourselves is not in jeopardy. And finally, a Minnesota where we care for our veterans, the women and men who have sacrificed so much to keep our state and our country free. This is my vision for Minnesota, but the vision is just the beginning. It requires hard work and discerning leadership to make it a reality. Our elected officials, community members, and citizens all need to work together to make it happen. I'm asking for the help of all of us to make this vision a reality, because without all of us, this will not happen. I ask you to support me in changing the direction we're heading and creating a stronger future for our children, our families, our businesses, our communities, our loved ones, and our state. My name is Paul Gazelka, and I'm running for governor of the great state of Minnesota. So I'm going to take a few questions, but I want to say hi to some of the people that came. I'll be back in just a few minutes. So I want to thank you guys. Thanks for coming. Thank you very much. All right, questions? Mary. The question is how does a Republican win statewide, and it's by building a broader coalition. We have the new groups that are coming our way. The people on the Iron Range support me. In fact, Democrat legislators on the range have said if I run, they'll support me on the range. That's a whole new group of people. Many of the blue-collar union workers that have been frustrated that Tim Walz has tried to stop the pipeline for months and months and months, or copper nickel mining, or some of the industries they care about, they are starting to come our way. The police, as I mentioned, with some of the careless words that the governor has said about the National Guard and police, they are very frustrated. And I think the suburban folks are waiting for something different than what we've had. If you look, frankly, at what President Biden has done as far as the border, or whether it's Afghanistan or some of the things he's done, and then combine that with Tim Walz, you see that there's a shift. And finally, in Minneapolis and St. Paul, I've traveled throughout the different communities within Minneapolis and St. Paul, and I would say that they want their streets safe. They don't want to defund the police. I think that's a misconception of too many of the leaders in Minneapolis. And they want to make sure that their kids have a fighting chance in school. And that's why we're talking about if their schools fail, they need more choices for our kids, particularly in Minneapolis and St. Paul. So deeply saddened by the death of Jerry Ralph, personal friend. We followed all the guidelines that were required at that particular moment, and he contracted the virus. I've always frankly said that the virus is serious, particularly if you're over 70. I've gotten COVID. I also got vaccinated. I think people should get vaccinated. I just don't think that you should mandate the vaccination on anyone. And so as we're moving forward, we all have to think about how we're living our lives and what we need to do to be safe. But I don't actually think that that will be an issue. We followed all the guidelines that we were supposed to.
One of the critiques I heard is that your greatest weakness is in fact your greatest strength. The fact that you've been able to work with Democrats and compromise and keep government working, that it's going to be difficult for you to win over the folks on the far right, the Trump folks. How do you respond to that?
Well, to win as a Republican, you have to convince the delegates or the passionate side of the Republican Party that you are with them and steering the direction that they want to go. And you have to be able to reach to the middle. And that is what I've had to do with the House and Governor under Republican hands. And frankly, for the last 3 two-year budget cycles, I've had to govern in divided government. And yet through that process, we were able to have no tax increases. Three different budgets. 2 different governors wanted big tax increases. We stopped every single one of them. The base cares that we defend the Second Amendment and protect the preciousness of life. So in the end, I do believe that people will see that I can govern and also that we can hold the line on the things that are important to Republicans.
January 6th suggests that governing isn't always what's desired. How do you win over that side of that end of the pool?
That is my responsibility, is to build those bridges. And people ask me, I supported President Trump. I have pictures of him in the car with him smiling, and I tell people, yeah, and I also have pictures with Walz and Dayton smiling. I'm a collaborator. I build bridges. I move the agenda. And if you look at my record the last 5 years about no tax increases, defending the Second Amendment, making sure that we had clean and reliable energy and not going too far on some of the mandates that would cripple businesses. Each of the decisions I made, I think, are where the people of Minnesota want us to go. No, I'll abide by the endorsement. The delegate process is important, and you need to win over the people that I think are most passionate. That's the passion of a campaign, and I expect to win them over. But in the end, I have to show them that to win, we have to be broader than what we've been. Well, I've always protected life. I think that's something I've said is precious all the way through. I would also want to make sure that we got the wording and everything correct about it. You want to make sure you're doing what you're doing right. The other thing I would say is I try to work with different pro-life groups about where they want to move the agenda. Some of those would say you got to be careful not to go too far too fast. I think the ultimate thing that we need to do is convince people in their hearts and minds that life is precious from conception all the way to natural death. I'm only focused on Minnesota, and in Minnesota, I would say that Joe Biden won Minnesota. I was very active, going door to door and canvassing and knowing where the votes were. We didn't think that everything about the election was fair. We felt like this is the big tech companies filtering out stories. We felt like the constant attacks against President Trump made it more difficult. Mail-in ballots is something that we want to make sure are better in the future. We don't really want them being mailed out to everybody with 45 days to collect them. We'd like to reform provisional ballots when you come to vote, that you have to prove who you say you are rather than that vote counting. So there's a number of reforms that we'd like to do. We think we should have photo ID for voting, but I'm going to focus just on Minnesota and not what the people think nationwide.
You have a great many constituents in Arizona. Did you win Arizona?
I'm focused on Minnesota. Where I put all of my effort and research and understanding was Minnesota. And that's, and I said in Minnesota, I saw that Biden won. I've accepted that. I accept the Electoral College doing their part. It's difficult. We were frustrated. We wanted Republicans to win and President Trump to win. But the Electoral College is the process when there's a heavily divided disagreement about what happened, and that process worked. Am I concerned about launching this campaign with the state of the Minnesota GOP? So I said I was at the state fair. In the state GOP booth, I heard virtually no one talking about that any more than people talk about Ken Martin, the DFL chair. Who they talk about is Governor Walz and who's going to beat him. And I'm going to be that one. Can you start over? So every bill I have to see, and so I don't make commitments that directly, other than to say I'm pro-life. My whole record shows that I'm pro-life, and so it would follow down that path is where I would be. Did I say law? If I said lawmakers, I meant delegates. Sorry. I did. Oh, I'm sorry. I did. Yes. Yes. I'm sorry. That is correct. So on the range, there are Democrat legislators that will support me on the range and promote me on the range. I'll let you know later. Well, Senator Tom Bach, who may now run as a Republican, is one of them. I'm not going to repeat other ones at this time. My goal is for Minnesota to elect myself as the Republican governor and also win the House and win the Senate. Republicans in my lifetime have never had House, Senate, governor at the same time, so most of what we've done is stalemate. We try to move the ball and the other side disagrees. Democrats have had a number of times where they've had all of it, and so that's my goal. My vision would be that I've talked about would mean that we win House, Senate, and governor. No, I am not. The process will work. I've helped to raise up and train a number of good qualified leaders. That decision will likely be made this week, and I'm going to support whoever's picked, but I've never publicly said that I'm going to support anyone. We've won the Republican majority in the Senate now 3 out of the last 4 times, twice back to back, which I don't think has ever happened. And so I've put the Senate in a good spot. We've raised a lot of resources that they're going to have available, and we have a lot of candidates coming forward. What we don't know is what the redistricting boundary lines are going to be, so there's a lot of people waiting to see what that looks like, and that's always an interesting time. We should have that by the end of February. So there's a number of other good candidates out there. I'm positioning myself as a conservative Republican with a track record that everybody can look at. On the vaccinations, I've always said that the vaccine or the virus is serious. I say that I've had COVID myself, that I've been vaccinated, that I think adults should be vaccinated, but I don't think that anyone should be forced to be vaccinated. And so that's where I'm at. Senator Jensen may take a different approach, but there's a lot of other issues besides this, and that's where, whether it's the Second Amendment or single-payer health care or some of the other issues, that we are a bit different. He's more moderate than I am, but people will have to decide, who is the best candidate. But like I said, there's a bunch of good candidates out there, and so it begins. Which one? Somebody's been there. Well, that's one of them. Make no little plans here is one of them, but yeah. So. All right, thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Let's get respected again, all right?